Jihu stood in the center of the grand chamber and felt the weight of 200 alien eyes watching him. Most of those eyes showed nothing but boredom. Some showed barely hidden contempt. He had given this same presentation 46 times before. Today would be the 47th time, and he already knew how it would end. The chamber itself was impressive. It stretched upward for hundreds of meters, with floating platforms for each member species of the Galactic Council. Light streamed through crystalline walls, casting rainbow patterns across the polished floor. Jihu had once found it beautiful. Now it just felt cold. He activated the holographic display. Images of the disputed asteroid fields appeared in the air between him and the council members. Red markers showed where Vrexian mining operations had established illegal outposts in human territory. The evidence was clear and undeniable. Honored members of the council, Jihu began, keeping his voice steady and professional. Once again, I bring evidence of treaty violations by the Vrexian Empire. These mining operations are within territories recognized as human sovereign space under the Treaty of New Horizons, signed 83 years ago. We request immediate cessation of all illegal activities, and a booming laugh interrupted him. Commander Raxthor of the Vrexian delegation rose from his platform. He was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, with thick armored scales covering his body. His forearms gestured dismissively at the holographic evidence. "The humans complain again," Raxthor said, his voice echoing through the chamber. "Always complaining, always whining. If you cannot defend your claims, perhaps they are not truly yours." More laughter rippled through the chamber. Several other species joined in. High Chancellor Vex Theron, leader of the council, barely glanced at the evidence. He was ancient, his crystalline body reflecting the chamber's light in dull, uninterested patterns. "Ambassador Jihu, the council has reviewed your previous complaints. The Vrexian Empire assures us they are operating in disputed territories, not claimed human space. Without the ability to enforce your claims, we must consider the practical realities of galactic politics." Jihu felt his jaw tighten. Practical realities. That was code for, "You're too weak to matter." He had heard variations of this response for decades. The council saw humanity as children playing at diplomacy, a young species that had stumbled into space travel through luck rather than merit. From the observation gallery above, Minji watched the proceedings with cold calculation. She was dressed in the formal uniform of Earth's military. Though her role here was officially just as an observer, her fingers moved across her wrist computer, sending an encrypted message back to Earth. The response came quickly. She read it twice, then looked down at Jihu. Their eyes met for just a moment. He gave the slightest nod. Jihu turned back to the council. Something in his posture had changed. The deference was gone. The careful diplomatic politeness had vanished. He stood straighter, and when he spoke, his voice carried a weight it had never held before. "I see," he said quietly. "Then let me be absolutely clear. The United Terran Coalition has attempted to resolve disputes through diplomatic channels for 217 years. We have filed complaints, followed protocols, attended hearings, and provided evidence. We have been patient. We have been respectful. We have done everything this council has asked of us." The chamber grew quieter. Something in Jihu's tone made even the laughing species fall silent. "You have mistaken our patience for weakness," Jihu continued. "You have mistaken our preference for peace as inability to wage war. You have assumed that because we smile and negotiate, we are soft. This is the last time I will stand before this council to ask for justice through diplomatic means." High Chancellor Vex Theron's crystalline form flickered with irritation. "Are you threatening the council, Ambassador?" "No," Jihu said simply. "I am informing you. The United Terran Coalition hereby withdraws from all pending negotiations, arbitrations, and diplomatic proceedings. We will no longer bring our grievances to this council. We will no longer wait for justice that never comes. We will resolve our disputes through alternative means, effective immediately." He deactivated the holographic display. The evidence of Vrexian crimes vanished into thin air. "Alternative means," Thor laughed again, louder this time. What will the humans do? Write strongly worded letters? Send more of your pathetic little ships to patrol space you cannot defend? His laughter was joined by dozens of other voices. Jihu did not respond. He simply turned and walked toward the chamber exit. His footsteps echoed in the vast space. Minji left the observation gallery and met him at the main doors. Behind them, 24 other human diplomats and officials stood from their seats and followed. The entire human delegation walked out of the grand chamber without another word. The doors sealed behind them with a heavy, final sound. Inside the chamber, the laughter continued for several minutes. High Chancellor Vex Theron waved a dismissive appendage. The humans are having a tantrum. They will return within a week, apologizing and begging us to reconsider. Juvenile species always do. Should we be concerned? Asked Representative Kolvar of the Threen Collective. She was smaller than most of the other delegates, with compound eyes that reflected genuine worry. The humans have been members of this council for over a century. This is unprecedented. They are nothing, Thor declared. A weak species with a handful of ships and mining colonies. They succeeded in space through luck and stolen technology. Without council protection, they will collapse within a year. He turned to his Vrexian officers. Increase mining operations in the disputed territories. If the humans wish to complain, let them try to stop us. In the corridors outside the chamber, Jihu and Minji walked side by side in silence. Other human personnel followed them. No one spoke until they reached the private shuttle bay where their ships waited. Only then did Minji allow herself a thin smile. Message sent to Earth Command. Admiral Taiwan confirms receipt. Operation Midnight Sun is authorized. Jihu nodded slowly. He felt no satisfaction, only a heavy sense of inevitability. 200 years, he said quietly. We tried their way for 200 years. They never listened, Minji replied. They never would have listened. Some species only understand one language. The human delegation boarded their ships. Within minutes, they departed from council space. Behind them, the Grand Chamber continued its normal business. Trade agreements were discussed. Border disputes between other species were arbitrated. The normal rhythm of galactic politics continued as if nothing had happened. None of them noticed the small communication device that Jihu had left behind, hidden in the chamber's wall. It transmitted a single word back to Earth. Confirmed. 3 light-years away, aboard the dreadnought Soul's Fury, Fleet Commander Taiwan received the signal. He stood on the bridge, surrounded by officers who had been waiting for this moment. Around the ship, empty space that had appeared completely void began to shimmer. One by one, hundreds of human warships decloaked. Then hundreds more. Then thousands. All ships, Taiwan said quietly. Begin Phase 1. Let them see what patience looks like when it ends. 3 weeks passed without a single word from humanity. The Galactic Council's communication channels remained open, ready to receive the expected apology. Messages were sent to Earth, to human colonies, to every known human outpost. All went unanswered. High Chancellor Vex Theron found this amusing at first. The children are pouting, he told the council during their weekly session. Give them time. They will realize they need us more than we need them. But Representative Kolvar was not amused. She had spent the 3 weeks reviewing every piece of intelligence her species had on humanity. What she found disturbed her. Chancellor, our data on human military capabilities is incomplete. Significantly incomplete. The humans have been members of this council for 137 years. Yet we have almost no information about their actual fleet strength. Because they have no fleet strength worth noting, Thor interrupted. We have observed their patrols. Perhaps 300 ships. Most of them outdated designs. Barely enough to protect their mining colonies. Kolvar's compound eyes fixed on the Vrexian commander. That is what troubles me. Why would a species with such limited forces be so confident? Why would they walk away from council protection? No one had a good answer. Aboard the dreadnought Soul's Fury, Fleet Commander Taiwan studied the tactical display before him. It showed the entire galaxy in miniature, with thousands of blue markers representing human ships. Most of those markers were in positions the Council had never detected, hidden in dark matter clouds, lurking beyond monitored space, waiting in the shadows between stars. Final status check, Taiwan ordered. His bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency. They had been preparing for this moment for decades. All fleets report ready, his tactical officer reported. Operation Midnight Sun can proceed on your order. Taiwan allowed himself a moment of reflection. He had been a young officer when humanity first joined the Galactic Council. He remembered the optimism, the belief that peaceful cooperation was possible. He had watched that optimism die slowly. Complaint by ignored complaint. Insult by unanswered insult. Execute Phase 2, he said. Show them what they refuse to see. Across the galaxy, human ships began to move. They emerged from hiding places that should not have been possible. Advanced stealth technology, developed in secret over generations, kept them invisible until the moment they chose to reveal themselves. When they did appear, the galaxy took notice. On Earth, Intelligence Director Yuna stood in the war room beneath Geneva. Holographic displays surrounded her, showing real-time data from across human space and beyond. Her team worked at dozens of stations, coordinating intelligence gathering and military operations simultaneously. Chancellor Vex Theron is trying to reach us again, her communications officer reported. 17th attempt this week. Maintain silence, Yuna ordered. Let them wonder. Let them worry. She pulled up a detailed analysis of Vrexian fleet movements. As expected, the Vrexians were becoming aggressive. Their emperor had authorized a punitive fleet to attack human territory. They wanted to make an example, to show the galaxy what happened to species that defied the strong. Target is Kepler Station, Yuna's tactical analyst confirmed. Mining colony, population approximately 15,000. The Vrexian fleet consists of 127 warships. They believe it will be an easy victory. Yuna smiled coldly. Alert Defense Coordinator Hana. Authorize full defensive protocols. Let's show the Vrexians what easy victories really look like. At Kepler Station, Hana received the authorization codes with grim satisfaction. She was a small woman, barely 5 feet tall, but her voice carried absolute authority when she spoke to her defensive crew. All personnel to battle stations. This is not a drill. Vrexian fleet inbound. ETA, 40 minutes. The station's civilian population was already being moved to hardened shelters deep within the asteroid. Hana had been drilling them for months. Everyone knew their roles. The evacuation proceeded smoothly and quickly. Defensive systems online, her weapons officer reported. Railgun batteries charging, missile tubes loaded, point defense grids active. Hana watched her tactical display as the Vrexian fleet approached. They were not being subtle. They came in a standard attack formation, confident and aggressive. They expected frightened miners and light defensive satellites. They had no idea what awaited them. The Vrexian fleet commander, Sub-Admiral Krivax, broadcast a message on all channels as his ships entered firing range. Human colony, you will surrender immediately. Your government has insulted the Vrexian Empire. You will pay the price for their arrogance. We give you 5 minutes to comply. Hana did not respond. She simply watched the countdown timer and waited for the perfect moment. When the Vrexian fleet entered the invisible boundary she had designated as the kill zone, she spoke one word: fire. What happened next would be analyzed by military strategists across the galaxy for years to come. Kepler Station revealed defensive capabilities that should not have existed on a simple mining outpost. Railgun batteries emerged from hidden positions within the asteroid. Missile pods that had been disguised as mining equipment launched thousands of warheads. Point defense systems created a web of intercepting fire so dense that nothing could pass through it. The Vrexian fleet attempted to return fire, but their weapons were jammed by electronic warfare systems the humans had never revealed. Their targeting computers failed. Their shields fluctuated wildly as human weapons struck with pinpoint accuracy. Ships that had been flying in formation moments before became clouds of debris. Sub-Admiral Krivax tried to order a retreat, but his communications were cut. He tried to activate his escape pod, but the launch system had been remotely disabled. His last thought was confusion. The humans were not supposed to be this strong. The battle lasted exactly 17 minutes. All 127 Vrexian ships were destroyed. Not a single escape pod launched successfully. Kepler Station suffered minor damage to 3 exterior sensor arrays. No human casualties. Hana broadcast the complete battle footage on all open galactic channels. She wanted everyone to see it. She wanted no confusion about what had just happened. The footage spread across the galactic network within hours. Every species, every government, every military command watched in stunned silence as the weak humans annihilated a major Vrexian fleet without breaking a sweat. In the Grand Chamber, High Chancellor Vex Theron watched the footage 3 times. His crystalline form flickered through colors that indicated shock and fear. Around him, the council members sat in absolute silence. The laughter from 3 weeks ago seemed like a distant memory. "How?" Representative Kolvar whispered. "How did we not know they had such capabilities?" "Because we never asked," another representative said quietly. "We assumed. We looked at their public fleet and thought that was all they had. We saw what they wanted us to see." Raxthor sat frozen in his seat. He had just received word that the punitive fleet he had authorized was gone. Completely gone. 127 ships and every Vrexian aboard them, dead in less than 20 minutes. "Try to contact the humans again," Vex Theron ordered. His voice carried none of its usual authority. Tell them we wish to discuss the recent unfortunate incident." The communications officer attempted to establish contact. After several minutes, he looked up with a pale face. "Chancellor, we have a response." "Put it through," Vex Theron said, relief evident in his voice. The message that appeared on the main display was not a diplomatic communication. It was a simple text message, cold and impersonal. "For 217 years, we tried your way. We filed complaints. We followed protocols. We were patient. You mistook patience for weakness. That ends today. Do not contact us again. We will contact you when we are ready." The message ended. The channel closed. Across the galaxy, human forces that had been hidden for decades began to move openly. They struck at every species that had violated treaties with humanity. Vrexian mining operations in disputed territories vanished in precisely coordinated attacks. 3 enslaver ships that had abducted human colonists were captured in a single night. Kolthari research stations that had been stealing human technology were destroyed. Every strike was surgical. Every target was carefully chosen. Civilian casualties were minimal to non-existent. The humans were not killing indiscriminately. They were enforcing justice with the kind of precision that only came from years of careful planning and preparation. On Earth, Yuna watched the operation unfold with professional satisfaction. Everything was proceeding according to plan. The galaxy was learning a lesson it should have learned peacefully. Humanity preferred diplomacy. But they were excellent at alternatives. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session 6 days after Kepler Station. Every member species sent their highest-ranking officials. The Grand Chamber, usually filled with casual chatter and political maneuvering, was silent and tense. They had demanded humanity send representatives to explain their actions. They had demanded answers. The humans sent neither representatives nor answers. Instead, a holographic communication appeared in the center of the chamber. It was not a live feed. It was a pre-recorded message, delivered with cold efficiency. The hologram showed Ambassador Jihu, but he was not dressed in diplomatic robes. He wore a simple military uniform. Behind him stood Minji and a dozen other humans, all in similar attire. When Jihu spoke, his voice carried none of the careful politeness the council remembered. "For 217 years, we tried your way. We filed complaints. We followed protocols. We submitted evidence. We were patient. We were respectful. We did everything this council asked of us. In return, you laughed at us. You dismissed our legitimate grievances. You allowed treaty violations to continue because you viewed us as too weak to matter. You mistook our preference for peace as an inability to wage war. That was your mistake, not ours. The hologram paused, letting the words sink in. High Chancellor Vex Theron wanted to respond, but there was no one to respond to. This was a message, not a conversation. Effective immediately, Jihu continued. The United Terran Coalition will enforce all treaties and agreements through direct action. Species that have violated human sovereignty will face consequences. Those who have harmed human citizens will be held accountable. Those who have stolen from us will return what they have taken. With interest. This is not a negotiation. This is an announcement. The hologram vanished. The council sat in shocked silence. On Earth, Director Do-Yun stood in the Strategic Command Center, coordinating the largest military operation in human history. He was a tall man, with graying hair and calm eyes that had seen decades of service. Around him, holographic displays showed the entire galaxy, marked with hundreds of ongoing operations. Operation Clean Slate is proceeding on schedule, his operations officer reported. All primary targets have been neutralized. Secondary targets are being engaged now. Do-Yun nodded. Operation Clean Slate was elegant in its simplicity. Every species that had violated treaties with humanity was being hit simultaneously. Every illegal operation, every treaty violation, every unpunished crime against human citizens was being addressed, not with angry vengeance, but with cold, calculated justice. The Vrexian Empire was discovering that losing a fleet at Kepler Station was just the beginning. Human forces had spent weeks mapping every Vrexian military installation, every mining operation, every supply line. Now they struck at all of them at once. Vrexian commanders found their ships disabled by weapons they had never seen before. Their mining operations were destroyed with such precision that neighboring facilities were left completely untouched. Their supply convoys simply vanished in transit. The Threen Collective, which had been quietly abducting human colonists for their slave markets for over a decade, faced a reckoning of their own. Captain Yunji commanded the stealth carrier Incheon Shadow, a ship so advanced that it could orbit within a planet's atmosphere without being detected. She led a strike force that infiltrated Threen space and located every holding facility where humans were being kept. All teams report ready, Unji said calmly. She was young for a captain, barely 30 years old, but she had earned her position through exceptional skill and unshakable composure under pressure. The rescue operation was flawless. Human special forces appeared simultaneously at 17 different locations across Threen space. They extracted every human captive, destroyed the slaving infrastructure, and captured the Threen officials responsible. The entire operation took 4 hours. The Threen military never even knew humans were there until it was over. The freed captives were returned to human space. The captured Threen officials found themselves transported to Earth, where they would face trial for crimes against humanity. The Threen government protested loudly, demanding their return. The humans ignored them. The Kolthari, who had built their technological advancement on stolen human research, watched as their primary research stations were systematically destroyed, not by missiles or energy weapons, but by something far more sophisticated, human computer viruses, hidden in the stolen data they had been using for years, activated simultaneously. Every piece of stolen human technology they possessed became useless. Decades of research, based on data they had not earned, simply ceased to function. Across the galaxy, species that had dismissed humanity as weak and insignificant were learning painful lessons. The humans were not cruel. They did not target civilians. They did not cause unnecessary destruction, but they were absolutely relentless. Every violation was addressed. Every crime was punished. Every treaty was enforced. In the Grand Chamber, High Chancellor Vex Theron attempted to rally the Council to action. "We cannot allow this to continue," he declared, his crystalline form flickering with agitation. "The humans are acting outside Council authority. They are taking justice into their own hands. We must sanction them. We must vote to authorize military action against what?" Representative Kolvar interrupted. her compound eyes fixed on the Chancellor with unusual intensity. Against a species that has proven it can reach any target in the galaxy? Against a military that has spent 2 centuries preparing for this moment while we laughed at them? Be honest, Chancellor. Do you believe we could stop them? Vex Theron fell silent. Around the chamber, other representatives shifted uncomfortably. The question hung in the air, unanswered. The truth was becoming clear to everyone. Humanity had been playing a long game. While the Council saw them as junior members to be dismissed and mocked, humans had been building. While other species focused on maintaining the status quo, humans had been preparing for the day when diplomacy would fail. They had hidden their true capabilities behind smiles and patient negotiations. They had let the galaxy think them weak because it was convenient. Now the mask was off, and the galaxy was terrified of what they saw beneath it. Captain Yunji's next mission was even more audacious than the last. Her orders came directly from Doyun himself. Demonstrate that humans could reach anyone, anywhere, anytime they chose. The target was not military installations or illegal operations. The target was the Council itself. Incheon Shadow and 2 sister ships entered Council space undetected. They used stealth technology so advanced that it bent sensor readings around them, making them effectively invisible. They positioned themselves in orbit above 3 different Council member homeworlds: the Vrexian capital, the Threne home system, and the crystalline world where High Chancellor Vex Theron's species originated. At precisely the same moment, all 3 ships decloaked. They appeared in low orbit, close enough that anyone with basic visual equipment could see them. They did not arm weapons. They did not threaten. They simply broadcast a message on all channels, in every language the galaxy knew. We could reach you anytime. We could have done this at any point in the last 2 centuries. We chose diplomacy instead. Remember that. Then, before any planetary defenses could react, the ships vanished again. They were gone as quickly as they had appeared, leaving behind populations who suddenly understood that their homeworlds were not safe from human reach. The psychological impact was devastating. If humans could appear above homeworlds undetected, what else could they do? If they could bypass the most sophisticated defensive systems in the galaxy, what protection did anyone really have? In the Grand Chamber, panic began to set in. Species that had mocked humanity days before now scrambled to review every interaction they had ever had with humans. Every border dispute, every minor incident, every casual insult was suddenly being re-examined. What if the humans decided they deserved punishment too? Commander Raxthor of the Vrexian delegation, who had laughed so loudly at Jihu just weeks before, found himself facing a grim reality. His empire had lost hundreds of ships. Their mining operations were in ruins. Their military infrastructure was crippled. And somewhere out there, human ships prowled Vrexian space, striking at will. He tried to petition the Council for assistance. He argued that the Vrexians were victims of human aggression. He demanded that the Council take action to protect member species from this threat. No one would listen. Every species was too busy protecting themselves to worry about the Vrexians. The empire that had seemed so strong just weeks ago was now isolated and vulnerable, facing an enemy they could not see and could not stop. On the bridge of Soul's Fury, Fleet Commander Taewan reviewed the latest intelligence reports. The operation was succeeding beyond their most optimistic projections. Resistance had been minimal. Casualties had been light. The galaxy was getting the message. "Sir," his communications officer said, "we are receiving thousands of messages from across the galaxy. Species requesting negotiations, offering reparations, begging for mercy." Taewan considered this for a long moment. "Forward all requests to Ambassador Jihu. Tell them we will respond when we are ready. Not before." The humans were not done yet. They had been patient for 2 centuries. They could be patient a little longer. The Galactic Council had never known true fear before. For thousands of years, they had been the arbiters of galactic civilization. They decided which species rose and which fell. They determined the rules that governed interstellar relations. They were powerful, untouchable, eternal. That certainty died in the wake of humanity's actions. Now, 2 months after the humans had walked out of the Grand Chamber, the council members gathered in emergency session for the 15th time. Every species represented looked diminished somehow. Their confidence had been shattered. Their assumptions about power and weakness had been proven dangerously wrong. High Chancellor Vex Theron attempted to maintain order, but his authority was crumbling. "We must present a unified front," he insisted. "The humans cannot be allowed to dictate terms to the Council. We must invoke Article 7 of the Galactic Charter and authorize sanctions against..." "Against what?" Representative Kolvar interrupted again. She had become the unofficial voice of reality in these meetings, saying what others were too afraid to acknowledge. "Chancellor, let me be perfectly clear. The humans have dismantled Vrexian military capability in 3 weeks. They have rescued prisoners from our most secure facilities without us even knowing they were there. They have appeared in orbit above our homeworlds at will. What sanctions do you propose that would not simply provoke them into doing more of the same?" Silence answered her. Around the chamber, representatives who had once been eager to speak now remained quiet. The Vrexian delegation's seats were only half filled. Commander Raxthor was notably absent, having been recalled to face his emperor's displeasure over the catastrophic fleet losses. "We should negotiate," suggested Representative Thulman of the Cortari Unity. His species had been neutral in most galactic affairs, carefully avoiding conflicts. "Offer the humans what they want. End this before more damage is done. Negotiate from a position of total weakness?" Vex Theron's crystalline form flickered with indignation. "That would destroy the Council's authority forever." "What authority?" Kolvar asked quietly. "The humans have shown that our authority extends only as far as our ability to enforce it. We never had to enforce anything before, because member species accepted Council decisions. The humans no longer accept them. Our authority over them is already gone." The truth of her words hung heavy in the chamber. The Galactic Council had ruled through consensus and tradition, never through force. Now they faced a species that rejected both, and they had no answer. The Vrexian Empire was learning what rejection of human patience truly meant. Their emperor, Tharvolax the Undefeated, had refused to surrender the war criminals responsible for attacking human civilians. He had declared that the Vrexian Empire bowed to no one, especially not to a species of weak mammals who had barely left their homeworld 2 centuries ago. Admiral Hyunwoo received those declarations with quiet satisfaction. He commanded the human blockade around Vrexian Prime, the Empire's homeworld. 23 human warships held position just beyond the planet's defensive range. They had been there for a week, doing nothing but watching. Waiting. Hyunwoo was an older officer, with silver in his hair and the calm patience that came from decades of service. He had fought in humanity's early conflicts, back when they were still learning how to survive in a hostile galaxy. He remembered the insults, the dismissals, the casual cruelty of species that viewed humans as beneath notice. This moment had been a long time coming. "Emperor Tharvolax has issued another statement," his communications officer reported. "He says the blockade is meaningless. He says Vrexian Prime is impregnable, protected by the most advanced defensive systems in the galaxy. Show him otherwise," Hyunwoo said calmly. "Execute Protocol Nightfall." What followed was a demonstration of human technological superiority that left military observers across the galaxy stunned. Vrexian Prime's defensive network was indeed sophisticated, built over centuries and constantly upgraded. It included thousands of satellites, orbital weapons platforms, sensor arrays, and communication relays. It was designed to detect and destroy any threat before it could reach the planet. The humans disabled all of it in 47 minutes. They did not destroy the systems. They did not need to. Instead, they used electronic warfare technology that was decades ahead of anything the galaxy had seen. Computer viruses, quantum disruption fields, and electromagnetic pulse weapons rendered every defensive system inactive without firing a single kinetic round. Emperor Tharvolax watched from his throne room as his planet's defenses went dark one by one. Communication with his orbital forces ceased. Satellite coverage vanished. The weapons platforms that had guarded his world for 300 years became inert metal floating in space. Then a message came through on a hardline emergency channel, one that the Vrexians had not even known humans could access. Admiral Hyunwoo's face appeared on every screen in the Imperial Palace simultaneously. "Emperor Tharvolax," Hyunwoo said, his tone conversational and almost friendly. "Your defensive network is now offline. Your orbital infrastructure is inoperable. Your planet is completely vulnerable. I want you to understand something important. We did this without killing a single Vrexian. We did this without destroying anything that cannot be repaired. We are showing you mercy you did not show to human civilians." The Admiral paused, letting that sink in. "You have 1 hour to surrender the war criminals we requested. If you do not comply, we will disable your power grid, your water treatment facilities, and your transportation network. We will not harm your citizens, but we will make it impossible for your government to function. After that, we will wait another hour and take more systems offline. We can continue this for as long as necessary." The transmission ended. Emperor Tharvolax sat frozen on his throne, surrounded by advisors who had no advice to offer. The undefeated emperor was facing defeat, and everyone in the room knew it. 20 minutes later, the war criminals were surrendered. The human blockade received them, verified their identities, and departed. Before they left, they reactivated Vrexian Prime's defensive systems. "A parting gift," Hyunwoo called it. A reminder that humans took what they wanted and gave back what they chose to give back. On Earth, engineer Jinwoo worked in a laboratory deep beneath the Terran development complex. His team was responsible for many of the weapon systems that had made human military dominance possible. He was not a military man himself, just a scientist who had spent his career pushing the boundaries of what technology could achieve. The quantum jammers that disabled Vrexian weapons systems had been his design. The gravity well generators that could trap entire fleets in normal space were his innovation. The dark matter stealth fields that made human ships invisible to conventional sensors were based on his research. "Director Doyun is asking for a status report on the new systems," his assistant said, interrupting Jinwoo's work on a particularly complex equation. "He wants to know if we will be ready for Phase 3. Jinwoo looked up from his calculations. "Tell him we are ahead of schedule. The new antimatter distribution system is operational. The quantum communication network is fully deployed. If we need to escalate, we have the capability." He hoped they would not need to escalate. The show of force had been impressive enough. Surely the galaxy would accept reason now, would understand that cooperation was preferable to conflict. But Jinwoo was also a realist. Some species only learned through painful experience. If the galaxy needed more demonstrations, humanity would provide them. Ambassador Jihu finally responded to the Council's communication requests after 2 months of silence. He did not appear in person. He did not offer explanations or justifications. He simply transmitted a document outlining humanity's terms. The document was not a request. It was not a negotiation starting point. It was a declaration of new reality, delivered with the same cold efficiency that had characterized all human actions since they walked out of the Grand Chamber. Full recognition of all human territorial claims, including previously disputed regions. Immediate cessation of all activities in human space by non-human entities. Complete reparations for damages caused by treaty violations, calculated at human discretion. Prosecution and punishment of all individuals responsible for crimes against human citizens, to be tried under human law in human courts. Permanent representation for humanity in all council decisions affecting human interests, with full veto power over matters concerning human security. The terms were absolute, non-negotiable. Humanity was not asking for justice anymore. They were imposing it. Ambassador Sora delivered the document to the council personally. She was younger than Jihu, in her early 40s, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She stood in the grand chamber where Jihu had stood so many times before, but there was no pleading in her posture, no deference, no diplomatic politeness, just cold certainty. "You have 72 hours to accept these terms," she said. "Species that comply immediately will be treated as partners in the new galactic order. Species that resist will be treated as threats to human security. Choose wisely. She did not wait for responses. She simply turned and walked out, leaving the council in chaos behind her. Over the next 3 days, species across the galaxy made their choices. Most accepted immediately. The cost of compliance was far less than the cost of resistance. A few species tried to negotiate, to soften the terms, to preserve some dignity. The humans ignored them until they accepted in full. Only the Vrexian Empire hesitated. Emperor Thar Volax, his pride wounded but not yet broken, attempted to form an alliance of resistance. He contacted other species, seeking partners who would stand against human demands. He found none. Every species he contacted politely declined. Some were more honest than others. The Cortari Unity simply told him, "We will not die for your pride, Emperor." The 72-hour deadline passed. The Vrexian Empire had not formally accepted the terms. Admiral Hyunwoo returned to Vrexian Prime. This time, he brought 50 warships instead of 23. The message was clear. Accept now, or face consequences. Emperor Tharvalax finally understood what his military commanders had been trying to tell him. The humans were not bluffing. They were not engaging in diplomatic theater. They would do exactly what they said they would do, with the same cold efficiency they had shown throughout this conflict. He accepted the terms in full. The undefeated emperor admitted defeat. Across the galaxy, the last resistance to human demands collapsed. 6 months after humanity abandoned diplomacy, the galaxy had transformed in ways no one had predicted. The Galactic Council still existed, but it functioned very differently now. Decisions that once took years of debate were made in days. Treaties that had been violated with impunity were now enforced immediately. Justice, which had been a matter of perspective and political convenience, had become absolute and impartial. The change had a name, though few spoke it aloud. Humans had taken control. Ambassador Jihu returned to the Grand Chamber for the first time since walking out. He wore diplomatic robes again, but something fundamental had changed. When he entered, the entire chamber fell silent. Representatives who had once laughed at him now stood in respect. High Chancellor Vex Theron, still the nominal leader of the council, gestured for Jihu to take the position of honor at the center of the chamber. "Ambassador Jihu," Vex Theron said, his crystalline form flickering with colors that indicated deference and respect. "The council welcomes your return. We have reviewed all matters pending before this body and await your guidance on how to proceed." Guidance. Not input. Not suggestions. Guidance. The word choice was deliberate, and everyone understood its meaning. The council would make no major decisions without human approval. Jihu did not smile or gloat. He simply nodded and took his position. "Thank you, Chancellor. Let us begin with the matter of the Krell-Thortani border dispute. I have reviewed the evidence presented by both parties. The ruling is straightforward." Over the next several hours, Jihu worked through a backlog of cases that had been stalled in council bureaucracy for years. His judgments were swift, fair, and final. Species learned quickly that appealing his decisions was pointless. The humans had proven they would enforce their rulings with absolute certainty. Compliance was no longer optional. Representative Kolvar watched the proceedings with mixed feelings. Her species, the Threen, had suffered during the human military actions. Many of her people had been arrested for crimes against humanity. Facilities that her government had claimed were legitimate research centers had been destroyed. But she could not deny one truth. The galaxy was more just now than it had been in centuries. "Ambassador," she said during a break in the proceedings, approaching Jihu carefully. "May I ask you something personal?" Jihu regarded her with calm eyes. "Of course, Representative. Do you hate us?" she asked quietly. "My people and the others who wronged you? Is this justice, or is it revenge?" Jihu considered the question seriously. "We do not hate you. Hate requires caring deeply about something. We tried caring for 2 centuries, tried building relationships based on mutual respect and cooperation. You taught us that caring was a weakness to be exploited. So now we enforce rules without caring whether you like them or agree with them. If that seems cold to you, remember that you made it necessary." He paused, then added more softly, "But this is justice, Representative, not revenge. If we wanted revenge, the Threen Collective would no longer exist. Your people would have paid for every human they enslaved with their lives. Instead, your criminals face fair trials. Your government retains sovereignty. Your people continue their lives under new rules that protect everyone equally. That is justice." Kolvar nodded slowly, understanding more than Jihu had said aloud. The humans had shown remarkable restraint. They could have burned hostile species to ash. They chose not to. That choice, that mercy despite overwhelming power, was perhaps the most terrifying thing about them. Across the galaxy, the reality of human enforcement was becoming clear. Fleet Commander Taiwan coordinated patrol routes that covered every major trade route and border region. Human ships, once hidden, now flew openly. They did not threaten or intimidate. They simply watched and waited. Pirates discovered that attacking vessels under human protection was suicide. Slavers learned that taking human citizens meant certain death. Treaty violations stopped happening because everyone knew the consequences. Minji, promoted to Defense Coordinator for the United Terran Coalition, established the Human Enforcement Corps. It was not an occupation force or a tool of oppression. It was something the galaxy had never seen before. An impartial enforcement agency that served justice without political consideration. The Corps investigated crimes, arrested criminals, and ensured treaties were honored. They did this for all species, not just humans. The motto of the Human Enforcement Corps spread quickly. "We ask nicely." Once, it was printed on their uniforms, displayed on their ships, and became shorthand across the galaxy for the consequences of ignoring justice. Some species resented it, most respected it, all feared it. On Earth, Director Yuna reviewed intelligence reports in her office overlooking Geneva. The reports showed declining crime rates across the galaxy, fewer conflicts between species, increased trade and cooperation. The numbers told a story of a galaxy that was learning to coexist peacefully, not because they wanted to, but because they had to. "Are we the bad guys?" her assistant asked one evening, reviewing the same data. "We enforced peace through force. Does that make us oppressors?" Yuna shook her head. "Oppressors take rights away. We enforce rights that already existed but were never respected. The treaties we enforce were signed by every council species. The laws we apply were written by the council itself. We simply remove the option of ignoring them. That makes us police, not oppressors." She stood and looked out at the night sky. Every species had the chance to make this system work through voluntary cooperation. They chose not to. So now we make them cooperate whether they want to or not. Future generations can decide if they want to continue this peacefully. But first, they need to learn what peace actually looks like. Admiral Hyun-woo oversaw the gradual reduction of human military presence in formerly hostile territories. The Vrexian Empire had complied with all demands. War criminals had been prosecuted. Reparations had been paid. The Empire was allowed to rebuild its military under strict human oversight. Emperor Tharvolax had been forced to abdicate, replaced by his daughter, Empress Veltara, who understood the new reality and worked within it. "Sir," Hyunwoo's tactical officer said, "Vrexian military is requesting permission to conduct training exercises in Sector 7. "Granted," Hyunwoo replied after reviewing the details. "Send observers. Make sure they comply with the new treaty limitations." It was strange, working with species that had been enemies months before. But Hyunwoo had lived long enough to understand that yesterday's enemies could become tomorrow's allies if they learned the right lessons. The Vrexians were learning, slowly, grudgingly. But they were learning. Captain Unji commanded deep space patrols now, hunting the remaining pirates and criminals who had not yet accepted the new order. Her carrier, Incheon Shadow, was perfect for this work. She could appear anywhere without warning, strike quickly, and vanish before anyone could organize resistance. Target identified. her sensor officer reported. Pirate base on the third moon of Helix 4. Confirmed involvement in 3 recent raids on civilian shipping. Brain. Assault teams, prepare for deployment, Unji ordered. Remember, we take prisoners when possible. These are criminals, not soldiers. Treat them accordingly. The raid was textbook perfect. Human Marines stormed the pirate base, captured the criminals alive, and secured evidence of their crimes. The captured pirates would face trial, would have the chance to defend themselves, would receive fair sentencing based on the evidence. Justice, not revenge. One of the captured pirate leaders, a Kolthari named Vexistal, laughed bitterly as he was being processed. You humans are fools. You could rule the galaxy. You could take whatever you wanted. Instead, you play at being judges and police. Why? Unji looked at him with steady eyes. Because we remember what it was like when no one enforced the rules. We remember filing complaints that were ignored. We remember watching criminals escape justice because they were politically protected. We remember the galaxy you helped create, where might made right and the weak suffered. We hated that galaxy. So we changed it. She turned away, then looked back. And we do not play at being judges, Vextal. We are judges. We are police. We are enforcers. We earned that role by being strong enough to take it and wise enough to use it fairly. You will receive a fair trial. You will face consequences for your crimes. That is more justice than you ever gave to your victims. In the Grand Chamber, the Council was learning to function under human oversight. Some resented it. Some accepted it pragefully. A few, like Representative Kolvar, actually appreciated it. Decisions were made based on evidence and law, rather than political favors and power dynamics. Smaller species, who had been ignored for centuries, found their voices actually mattered now. Justice was no longer something bought and sold. High Chancellor Vex Theron had resigned, unable to adapt to the new reality. He was replaced by Representative Kolvar, chosen specifically because she understood what humanity represented. In her first address as the new chancellor, she spoke words that would be remembered for generations. For thousands of years, this council ruled through consensus and tradition. We believed that was enough. We were wrong. Consensus without enforcement is just pretty words. Tradition without justice is just perpetuating mistakes. Humanity showed us this truth in the most painful way possible. They tried to work within our system. We failed them. So they fixed the system by force. History will judge whether their methods were right or wrong. But no one can deny the results. The galaxy is more just, more peaceful, and more fair than it has been in living memory. She paused, looking around the chamber. Some of you resent human power. I understand. But ask yourselves honestly, what would you do differently if you had their strength? Would you be as fair, as restrained, as committed to justice for all species, not just your own? Humanity could have burned our civilizations to ash. They chose to fix them instead. We should be grateful for that choice, even as we work toward a day when such enforcement is no longer necessary. On Earth, in a quiet office beneath Geneva, Director Doyun received a report that made him smile. It was from Ambassador Sora, stationed at the Council. Smaller species were beginning to trust human judgment. Some were even requesting human mediation in disputes that did not involve humanity at all. The galaxy was accepting the new order not because it had no choice, but because it was seeing the benefits. Sir, his assistant said, you have a message from Fleet Commander Taiwan. He says the galaxy is at the lowest conflict levels in recorded history. Trade is up 40%. Piracy is down 78%. Treaty violations are essentially zero. Doyun nodded slowly. And how do our people feel about all this? Are we becoming the oppressors we hated? Public opinion polls show mixed results, the assistant reported. Some think we went too far. Some think we did not go far enough. Most believe we did what was necessary. That sounds about right, Doyun said. Perfect consensus means you are not making hard choices. We made the hardest choice possible. We decided that justice mattered more than being liked. History will judge if we were right. Years later, in a small coffee shop on the moon of Tyrene, a young council intern named Keshes Tira sat with former High Chancellor Vexus Theron. She was writing her thesis on the human enforcement period and wanted to interview someone who had witnessed it firsthand. What was humanity's secret? She asked. How did they succeed where others failed? Quote, Vexus Theron, now old and humbled by time and experience, considered the question carefully. They had no secret, he finally said. That is what made them so dangerous. They simply chose diplomacy over dominance. They preferred peace to war. They valued cooperation over conquest. We saw those choices and assumed they were weak. We believed that any species strong enough to dominate would choose dominance. He paused, crystalline form flickering with colors that indicated shame. The terrifying truth is that they were always this strong. From the moment they entered the galactic community, they had the capability to do what they eventually did. They could have demanded respect through force. They could have taken what they wanted. Instead, they asked nicely. They negotiated fairly. They gave us 200 years of chances to prove we could coexist peacefully. And when that failed? Keshtira asked. When that failed, Vex Theron said quietly, they showed us what happens when you force peaceful people to abandon peace. They showed us with such devastating efficiency that no one will ever make that mistake again. The galaxy learned a lesson that will be remembered for 1,000 generations. The most dangerous species is not the strongest or the smartest. It is the one that gives you every chance to do the right thing, and only shows you its strength when you refuse. He looked at the young intern with eyes that had seen empires fall. Humanity was patient. We mistook patience for weakness. That was our error, not theirs. And the galaxy paid dearly to learn the truth.